Thanks for that. It's good to be back here. I got the opportunity this time last year to present at this conference after I'd just joined the company. It's been a pretty good year for us. It's fair to say after our resource upgrade and the recent excitement in the conglomerate story in the Pilbara, it's really been something that's been a big benefit for the company. It's been difficult for a lot of juniors to get traction and attention, and this has done that for us, enabled us to raise a good amount of capital to sort of make you feel like you're a serious explorer. There's myself on the board with Bruno Sinek, who's the Managing Director of Tirana Resources, and Neil Hutchinson, who's a geologist with extensive experience in the industry. Major shareholders are Tirana, and we've got a new major shareholder in the last 4 to 5 months of Eric Sprott. Eric's name comes up with Kirkland Capital. Kirkland Resources, he's the chairman there. He's also new chairman of Novo Resources, which is a big player in the Pilbara region. They've got $1 billion market cap from their Pilbara conglomerate gold story. He's an entrepreneur and very much a gold bug. He was very keen on what we had in the Pilbara and got involved with our $7.5 million capital raising late last year. We've still got just over 8 million. That was about our market cap this time last year. You can see from the share chart there we had and generated quite a bit of excitement from the original sort of gold discoveries of the nuggets in conglomerates. We were doing 50 to 100 million shares daily, and it was something that probably haven't seen in the gold industry for quite a while. It was pretty interesting, and I'm sure of you, if you've got volume measures on your stock portfolios, our stock would have popped up, and a lot of people would have wondered why. Then you start to see a few others sort of come through, the De Greys, the Artemises, and you sort of tie that into what was happening on the ground. It really is an old-fashioned gold rush. For us, we were already up there, and I think that made a big difference. The entry costs to get back in, people had a mag pegging rush, but the good thing for us, we'd already been there, and I'll sort of explain that now of what we were up to and how that really works in with the conglomerate story. So we've got the Pilbara Gold Project. It was called Lynas Find back in the late 90s. They mined 120-odd thousand ounces. We just increased what was a 258,000 resource, and we put this out last week up to 643,000. I'll go through that in a bit of detail because one of the things we'd like to do is sort of have a presence. It was great to see Millennium doing very well a bit further over to the east at Nullagine. But there really is a dearth of processing options for gold in the Pilbara. I think the companies that can move forward and fill that gap, you've got De Grey up there as well. That can be a big advantage when people start to understand more about where the gold is in these conglomerates throughout the Pilbara region. Like I say, we've got over 1,000 square kilometres of tenure, which is granted. The reason that is we pegged all this to look for lithium. We're still sort of out there. We haven't really started that. It was just as it was getting granted that this conglomerate story started. So our exploration for lithium has been pretty poor. Maybe I can come back here next year and we've got pegmatites as well as gold. But at the moment, the conglomerate's going to keep us busy. And we've also got another large tenement package south of Breaker Resources around Kalgoorlie, which is pretty handy because it's hot in the Pilbara during the summer. The interesting thing about the Pilbara story is we're sort of over here, right next to Pilgangoora, right next to the main lithium mines by Pilbara Minerals and Altura. And what that's done is put all the infrastructure in place. We can get out there with haul roads. We've also got the main roads and rail from Port Hedland all the way up and down. So it really is a good place to start and look to build a new gold processing facility. And when I say we're close to Pilbara Minerals, we are that close, like literally right there. And this is our tenement package here and then around here. And it's really this gold deposit down the bottom that's changed things for us. The first drilling we did, if you look at this slide, you can see where the old open pits were, just up the top here. And they only did very shallow drilling. We came back and wanted to know how extensive the gold, and it's in a sort of traditional Archean banded iron formation. We found that it was quite continuous and extended at quite a significant sort of depth under the drilling that had been done in the past. That gives us a lot of potential in behind what was mined, different horizons, but the main thing for us was also to see if there was more mineralisation between the pits and how long, because there was also other parts of this banded iron that hadn't been tested. What we've found is it's pretty much one continuous ore body. It's about 3.5 kilometres long. You've got Main Hill and Breccia Hill, which were the two mines for Linus Find. We've now just decided to call this the one deposit at Mount York. And it was really a drill program last year that changed our thinking on this project. We did about 23 holes between Breccia Hill and Gossan Hill, and all of them hit mineralisation over quite broad spacings. And I think when you just put out an announcement and you just put out a list of your best intersections in 23 holes, it's hard to put context around it. But when you're able to do a resource study on it and find that it's all part of the same body and it all sits within 2,000 Aussie pit shells, and there's about 500,000 ounces. The grade's not high, but it's got a lot of other things going for it. It's nice, continuous, it's 10 plus metres wide. It's a relatively low strip ratio. So this now, for us as a company going forward, is really a significant exploration target. The end intersection there was 11 metres at 1.8. There's no more drilling after that. We've currently got a rig active in that area, so we're following that banded iron formation around. So we'll have pretty good news flow over the coming weeks just on that. But this now really does put us in a great spot going forward. The red is where we've drilled, but the nearly 500,000 ounces in resource is within those pit shells. So it's quite a constrained one, and it's something that gives us a lot of encouragement. And I think if we can keep working on this and get some sort of a processing facility in the Pilbara, we might be able to sort out what's going on with these things, which is Novo's gold nuggets. There's always been gold nuggets. I think Karratha has the highest per capita of boats and metal detectors. So I think the guys are pretty simple. It's fishing, and if it's no good, we'll just go and find some gold. So we've been finding gold in the Pilbara for a long time, finding it in conglomerates, which is one thing, but Quentin Hennig came up with the idea that the Pilbara, and it's the same sort of age as the Wits Basin in Africa, which holds 1/3 of the world's gold, which is quite amazing. The Pilbara Basin's the same age, so it's formed at the same time. And what's interesting is the nuggets that are being found and the gold is at Purdy's over here, Mount Oscar, Loudon's by De Grey's. We went out here because it's in a specific horizon in a basalt called the Mount Roe, and there's conglomerates under that. And what we had on our maps, and this is we were sort of approached with sort of funding offers of, we want to do a capital raise, we'll give you $5 million, just go out and have a look. There was no conglomerate mapped, and we had to go out and even start that. But the interesting thing, and I think that's where the excitement came from, is more of a Pilbara-wide story and the lateral and the distribution of the gold throughout the whole area. Right. And in order to sort of explain why there's a bit of excitement, it's unfortunate I've got to talk about climate change. And, as a geologist, there's a lot of discussion about it, but these guys are the problem. They're called stromatolites, and they still exist, and they're in the oceans and little salt lakes and that in WA. And when I talk about climate change, when they were around between about 3.5 billion and 2.5 billion, there was no oxygen in the atmosphere. They put oxygen in the atmosphere, and that was a pretty big event. Until then, we had primitive sort of seas, which formed the Wits Basin and also the Pilbara Basin. And the sea wasn't like what we think of it today. We know it holds salt, we know it holds small amounts of gold and metal, and it's dissolved. But these were highly sulphurous seas, and when they put oxygen into the atmosphere, we had a massive chemistry change. Now, I'm not going to get into the debate about what happened, but the idea is that the gold's precipitated out of these seas, and there's quite a few papers on it. If you want to research it, you can go to the Novo website, you can Google it. But what's interesting is that means that there's laterally extensive gold deposited in a lot of different rock types over a big area. And we know that these are in the Pilbara, and we know that there's laterally extensive gold. It is really early days, but it is very exciting. What we had was 20 odd kilometres of strike of Mount Roe basalt, and we went out. We had to get a helicopter. It's so remote, there's no tracks. And the first thing for us was, could we find conglomerate? And that's probably the easiest rock in the world to identify. We get our accountants out in the field, because we're short of staff, and they can find conglomerate. It's a good one. And what we found, there's quite a lot of it. There's more than what we expected. We got our original sort of stream sediment samples, and we thought, if we get a few hundred parts per billion, that would be a great follow-up. We got 12,000. We had 12 grams per tonne, 1 gram per tonne. There's big, thick zones of it. We got an area down the bottom here which we panned off, but also these other areas. And we're just getting specks of gold in the pan, and that's not really a stream sediment, it's more of a soil. So what we've got and found very quickly is we've got the right horizons over a big area. We've got to get back out there and do a lot more work. But when somebody says, here's a model, go and find a basalt, and if you find that basalt, there'll be some conglomerate underneath it, and go and have a look and see if there's any gold. Well, we did. And that's enough for me. I think our job now with the funding is to go and see how much gold there is. And if we can add that in, given the location with our other resources, then that can make a big difference going forward. There's also gold in the upper horizons above the basalt. This is in the Hardy Formation. This is really similar to the previous sort of conglomerate gold over at Beaton's Creek and that sort of age, which is near Marble Bar. So there's multiple horizons. One of the interesting things, I think, is as a geologist, this is not mineralised. It doesn't, it doesn't excite you, and you walk around the field, you wouldn't really fill your pack full of this stuff. But that's changed, and that's what's exciting. There we go. So for Kairos, we're back after a year of sort of moving our focus up in the Pilbara, and I can't say we would have predicted this sort of a gold rush, but it's great to be in the middle of it. We've got granted tenements. We've already found the right rock units. We've found gold in those, so it's going to be an exciting 6 months. We're just getting our sort of access tracks and everything sorted to get out, and it's a bit unusual, but we're going back to panning, and we've got a sluice, and we'll use metal detectors. So our technology is about 1850s level, but it works. It's not the sort of thing we probably need assaying for. So that initial success at Croydon has been a real game changer for us. I think also we need to add to that 600 odd thousand ounces in resource. If we can keep growing that in the next 6 months as well, that will be a big boost for the company, and you can sort of see from the size and scale of that Mount York deposit that it can grow quite quickly. We've also got the large project south of Kalgoorlie, which is great for when it's too hot in the Pilbara, which is 9 months of the year. And we're well funded, with 8 million in cash, we've got the ability to get in and get things done. And the main thing that you want is news flow. And that's the one thing we'll be able to provide through the next 6 to 12 months. So I won't keep everybody from lunch, because I think that's it. So thanks for the opportunity. If you want to discuss it more and what's going on in the Pilbara, I'll be at the booth.